Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Body Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Palmer. And if you're here, it's probably because you're a high performer, real estate agent, or a business owner that's interested in maximizing your physique, your finances, and your family time using fitness and nutrition as force multipliers in your own life. If you're not a part of the Facebook group, definitely go to n8trainingsystems.com/group. That's where we stream these podcasts every Monday, where you can join in and ask questions. There's a ton of cool stuff happening in the group as well, and a ton of free resources if you're into that sort of thing. Again, go to n8trainingsystems.com/group to join us there. If you're already in the group and watching it live, we're super pumped to have you here because today is very exciting. We actually have the privilege of having Ben McLellan from the Empowered CEO along with us to chat about leadership and the two paths we can take to get there. Ben is an expert at helping 6- and 7-figure business owners become empowered CEOs in their own business and helping these CEOs actually get better at their job, offload some of the things that are not important and dive deeper into client satisfaction, the things that really matter within a business. So Ben, super pumped that you're here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life to join us.
Yeah, Nate, thanks for having me, man. I'm always excited to talk about leadership, and I appreciate you having me on, and hoping I can provide some value here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super pumped to pick your brain in a public setting where you can't say no to me.
Perfect.
So we were talking earlier about this. You were basically mentioning that there are like two pathways to leadership, right? Like an internal and an external, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You want to just jump in and start and just wrap with me here a little bit? Tell me a little bit about what's your philosophy on this?
Yeah, for sure. So, I was a few months ago, one of my clients actually asked if I would host some leadership trainings for some of his clients. And, as I was thinking about it, and I don't know that this is like my original idea, nor do I care, but I was saying, all right, there's so much to leadership, right? Like there's so many ingredients to it. What's a simple way to look at it and just kind of break it down maybe into two parts? And I said, well, on one hand, like there's some fundamental things that to me are like self-leadership, right? And I actually think that's really the foundation of leadership, because how can you lead others unless you're leading yourself well, right? And, under self-leadership, I think of, many different things. Like there's exercise and there's eating well and there's meditation and there's self-reflection. And, we could put all these kind of subcategories, if you will, under that. And then the other side of it is the leadership of others, right? And so I think there's such like a perfect combination of the two. And ultimately they lead to that big umbrella, which is what we're talking about, which is leadership.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I like how can you lead others if you don't have self-mastery in some form or fashion? And I think we all know people like that, where you're like, bro, how are you going to tell me what to do with my life when, have you looked in the mirror recently? And is there anything more heinous that feeling of don't tell me what to do because obviously you can't take your own advice?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I feel like when I feel that emotion, there's 0% chance I'm going to take anything from that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've even had jobs where people criticized my leadership, and then I look back and I go, holy shit, they were terrible leaders. And, that whole time I was questioning myself, because this person who was quote unquote above me in rank or role was criticizing my leadership. But, now it's I have the confidence and the clarity to look back and go, oh no, actually I was fine. they were actually, they were actually the ones who had poor leadership.
So almost they were taking that, taking their own imperfections, whatever, and putting it on you and being you're not delivering in this way that they weren't.
And something that's really important to me is humility. It's one of my core values, but
great. I'm super humble. So yeah, let's go. top 10 humble guys.
Yeah. Love it. But what's actually, what's happened as kind of a consequence of that at times is that I question myself. And so, Yeah, in that particular instance, I honestly think it was just a lack of maturity in that person, to where they had like read a lot about leadership and like studied leadership, and they were, by external standards very successful and all of that. So I think they just assumed that, like, well, they were a good leader because, and I think it's easy for us to fall into that. Oh, well, I'm successful, or I'm making lots of money, or I'm getting the things that I want in life, so like my leadership must be on point, where, it's often not the case.
I think that one of like the prime examples of like positive leadership that I've seen, and I had the privilege of seeing this at a young age. I was working at a place in Phoenix called Paddock Pools and Patio. And we had some managers who would, sit in the front office and, tell us to go unload the trucks and do this thing and put together this equipment, whatever else. And we'd go do it. It's our job, right? And we had a new manager came on. I never forget. His name is Dave Newsbach. And like first thing out the gate, what he did, he took off his manager polo, came into the back and like busted his ass, taking stuff off the truck with us. And I was like, who is this guy? And like, why is he back here when he could be just sitting up front doing his thing on the computer? But from then on, I was like, anything Dave ever told me to do, anything he ever asked of me, I would 100% do it. No questions asked, because I knew that dude would go do it in a heartbeat instead of me. He was on the front lines doing the work, period. And I feel like I was really lucky to have seen that example at 19.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's, when I've led teams, like in other companies, that's very much my approach. It's not like, oh, that's not my task. It's really hey, how can I help you? Like, I don't care if you're, quote unquote, above, below in terms of the hierarchy of the organization. It's like, no, we've got this job to complete, and we're a team, and like, how can I help you out? And I think it's happening more and more, because people are understanding that it's not like I'm above you, I'm below you. Like, you can lead up, you can lead across, you can lead, down, all of those things. And I think it's just better for everybody when we can do that, when we can, really lift each other up.
You said that humility is one of your core values. Do you feel like two questions. Do you feel like humility and self-awareness are similar, the same, closely correlated? And do you feel like humility is essential for a leader to have?
I don't, so the first question, I don't think that they're the same. I think that perhaps self-awareness could lead you to humility, right? Because if you start to zoom out, right? Like, self-awareness is like, to me, it's understanding, your inner workings and your personality and your tendencies and all of that. But it also, I think, can help kind of zoom you out of me, my, and mine, right? Like ego, right? It kind of quiets your ego to help you start to look around and go, oh, well, this whole, like, I'm not the sun and the world doesn't revolve around me. And so if that's the case, like, humility can actually, I think, be a byproduct of self-awareness.
That makes sense. And do you think that like either one or both of those characteristics are integral to being an effective leader?
Yeah. I think self-awareness for sure. And I guess I'm just trying to think of like someone I would consider a great leader who doesn't have some level of humility. I think for me personally, to see someone as a great leader, it's got to be there. It doesn't necessarily have to be their core value or one of them, but I think it's like when someone shows up with like bravado and like, oh, look at me. That to me is a turnoff. It's like it almost negates leadership, right? Because if you're showing up that way, how can you be really focused on what others need? How can you be of service if you're focused on yourself?
So that's the second time you've mentioned kind of like the teamwork and putting the team above the individual. It sounds like that, like in terms of like that second tier of leadership, like leading others, that's a huge focus, right? Not necessarily it's all about me, my goals, like how do I get what I want out of this? It's how do we get out of what we want out of the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I've read this book. I've actually I'm reading it a second time now. It's called Legacy. It's about have you heard of it?
One of my friends has mentioned that repeatedly.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you guys are interested in great leadership books, it's brilliant. It's about the All Blacks rugby team. They're based in New Zealand, and like it goes through their 15 tenets, basically, right? And one of their tenets is like no dickheads, and another one is like even the captains will sweep the shed, you know, and so like you look at their massive success over the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, and it's like, oh, okay, they're doing something right there. And no one on that team is too good for anything.
Yeah, I do like that. I do think that, seeing someone who's like, have you seen I think it's like a graphic or something like that of like leader in back, like cracking the whip versus like the
Yeah.
leader in front actually pulling the chariot sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think that really resonates. Did you had like a experience like mine where you saw someone and you were like, this guy's got it. This guy's the whole package.
Yeah. Yes. There was someone that I worked under, and yeah, he definitely showed those kind of great leadership qualities, like picking you up if you needed a kind of a pickup. He would come alongside you. He would coach you. Yeah, he was really a really great leader for sure.
Our mutual friend, Dave Smith, I would also put in that category as well. Just a humble guy about his business, but definitely someone who is not afraid to get down, get his hands dirty. And he's like, he's the first to show up, the last to leave kind of guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like, that's like, those are the qualities I think are very important to me when I'm, aligning myself with someone or choosing to like associate with them long-term.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me a little bit more about okay, we talk about leadership. You mentioned Gandhi earlier. I'm sure we can include like some like great military leaders as well. But like, how does one get to the point where now you've actually taken ownership of your own self so much to the point where now it becomes like easy or imperative to start leading others, or is it something you fall into?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's like I've gotten feedback that from like when I was leading teams and things like that, wow, you're a really great leader. And I
You're like, I know.
look at, yeah. That, the humility chimes in, and
That's
I'm
right.
like, yeah, I know. And for me, it's like, oh, okay, I appreciate that. And, it's like, you see the work that you still need to do. But I never thought of myself as like, oh, I'm going to lead teams, or I'm going to, do this and do that. But I do think, like, as I'm getting older, the ripe old age of 41 here, and it's like I've got 3 young boys, and I've got other people in my life that I mentor and who look up to me. Some of them older, some of them younger. I think it's like I just get so filled up by being able to share my experiences and mistakes and failures, and to try and like speed up someone else's path, right? Whether it's my kids or a client or a friend. And so I think if you get a taste of that, right, it's like, wow, I want to do more of that, because if I can pour into others, there's nothing more like validating or fulfilling than that. And I think that's really what leadership is, right? It's like pouring into others, helping them kind of maybe experience less pain and suffering than you have, or to learn from your experiences, so they don't have to make the same mistakes or have the same failures that you've had. And I think in a way it almost becomes like addicting.
Totally. And it's amazing. Like, I know we both are like coaches in some capacity, to see the people that you're talking to, that you're mentoring, that you're coaching, actually follow through on the advice or follow out of your footsteps in the mistakes you've made.
Yeah.
And like you said, shortcut their success. Right. And you're like, Yes, you just did in 6 months what it took me 3 years to accomplish because I'm stupid.
Yeah, yep, yep, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's super rewarding, and it feels really good when you have those people follow through on those steps,
Hmm.
especially.
Yep, yep.
So it sounds like to be a good leader, you just need to screw up a bunch.
Yeah. Well, maybe like screw up and own it. You
Okay,
know?
go on there. I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. So, I think we're in a time where we see a lack of ownership from a lot of people who have power, right? And and I'm not. It's not even like just like obviously politics are a thing now because of what's going on with the election and all that. But it's everywhere. It's corporations, it's celebrities, and so I think there's real opportunity for us as a collective to look around and go, hey, am I taking ownership of my experience? And I think, again, back to the self-awareness piece, like if you really start to realize, wow, you know what, these moments are precious and they're a gift and they're pretty fleeting. And so, you know what, I'm going to take ownership of them, because when I do, my life is actually going to be more fulfilling, and while people can resist that kind of ownership and they want to deflect and all that, I'm not those people, but my sense is that they're probably not having the kind of fulfilled and joyful experience that they could have if they were taking like really full ownership of what's happening, and that, not falling into victim or blaming or, that kind of place that we can easily drop into.
So it sounds like a key component of leadership to you is having that internal locus of control, essentially saying, I'm responsible for my reality, the events that happen around me, almost to a fault, to the point where like you're taking ownership of things like that maybe like didn't weren't necessarily within your power, but because you were there, or you were around, you were in somehow be able to hold yourself responsible. Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, yes. Essentially, it's like it's the difference between, oh, that happened to me versus that happened for me.
Ooh, I love
You
that.
know?
That's I feel like that's very like a tangible way to think about that ownership.
Yeah, because like, look, we've all had shit that we could look at and go, man, that sucked. you know, but if we hold on to that situation, and that is the anchor that keeps us from actually like thriving and leading and being impactful and whatever we're here to do as individuals, like then we're just floating in a swirl of victimhood, and it's like, well, that doesn't serve anybody. So, again, it's like it can be easy to drop into that, like, woe is me, but it's not really, that's a painful place to hang out.
And when there's woe is me, you're completely out of control. You're detached
Yeah.
from your ability to manipulate the situations. I feel like in a lot of circumstances, and we mentioned politics earlier, but a lot of times we spend in this these things are bad, and and they're hard, and I can't deal with them, and we allow ourselves to just kind of spiral here, right? And maybe it's not victimhood, maybe it's like voyeurism or whatever else, but you're not asking the question of, what can I do about this thing? What can I control in this situation? And maybe it's only your internal environment. Maybe it's only situationally you can control how you're feeling and how you're experiencing those things. But even so, isn't that better than being a victim to the media, to the
Yeah.
Instagram algorithm, to all these other things that you literally can't control?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And, it's like this, I mean, this year is like perfect example, right? Like,
Go on.
yeah. Well, so, I mean, it's a little surreal because I've had this conversation with several people, in that, like I launched my business in late February, like literally 4 weeks before things shut down here, and so, and like it was actually the perfect time because I had several clients come on at one time because I was like launching and I've got a fairly decent sized network and all that. And so it was like seeing business growth while so many people are like in pain and suffering because of what's happening in the world. It's like, whoa, it's kind of weird on some level, but what it actually did for me is it made me go, okay, okay, so I like to build businesses, like that's fun for me, but aside from like financial freedom and having some toys and whatever, like why do I actually want to build this business? And I think having this experience of a pandemic like front and center, it really made me kind of dig in and go, okay, I'm not just building a business to build a business. Like I need to get to the root of why so that I can stay motivated and I can not just be like, oh, well, lucky me. It's like, no, how can I take my good fortune in this situation and help people who aren't as fortunate right now?
Yeah. And that goes back to sharing your experiences, sharing your path, sharing the things you did wrong, and that you can own to help people walk through those same steps without hitting those pitfalls.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Have you read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink?
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like if you haven't read that, like that's got to be on the list. I think Over It Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, because I think that just his mentality around ownership and being like, that's on me, like taking 100% of the blame and giving out 100% of the credit, I think is so counterculture right now, where it's like, yeah, hustle, like 24/7 hustle, baby. Check out the Ferrari, and we defer all blame to everyone else. Well, I couldn't make it. The traffic was bad. Well, bitch, you should have left a little earlier. That's on you. And I think that his philosophy on that self-ownership, even going back to what you said about like owning why you want to create a business the way you do, like will propel you to actually do great things rather than being at the mercy of, oh, I'm in it for the money, someone else was responsible, whatever, like all these things that can come up in a myriad of different ways, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And, obviously Extreme Ownership, I loved it. I've read it and listened to it multiple times.
Audio version's good.
You mentioned Goggins. I think people can either love him or be like, oh man, that he's an animal. And the way I try and look at it, I think it's amazing, like what he's done. But, I made a post maybe a month or two ago when I was like listening to the audiobook and someone was like, well, for some people that's just like too intense or, something like that. And I was like, look, I get it. But the way that I'm looking at it is, okay, Goggins, if I'm gonna take some David Goggins and put it inside, it's like, where am I leaving some stuff on the table? What's that 1% I can be better today? Where am I making
compromises?
Yeah, where am I making excuses? Because we all do it. Where am I wasting time, right? And it's not, this person was saying, well, my clients deal with like a lot of self-judgment. It's like, I'm not coming at it from a place of like, let me beat myself up. But it's like, if I'm going to make excuses because I judge myself too harshly, then it's like, well, that's another thing we need to look at. So where are you holding yourself back by giving you a pass because David Goggins is too intense, So it's like, it's another opportunity to say, all right, how's my self-leadership?
Mm-hmm. I recently read the book 75 Hard by Andy Frisella, because I got a lot of friends who are doing the program right now. And I love what he said. He says, there's no your 75 hard, and there's no like my custom 75 hard. It's the 75 hard program. And if you deviate by an inch, if you forget to do one thing one time, you're done. You go back to like, you should go, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go start again. And I love that, like that mentality, that just straight savage mentality of holding yourself to that no excuses, no compromise, which is like that David Goggins can't hurt me mentality. Although I do wish Homeboy would have just Googled real quick, like how do I eat before an endurance race? Would have been like 30 seconds. He would have been saved himself so much trouble. Anyways, like the mentality is savage, right? And I think that we're a little soft right now. We give ourselves a lot of excuses. We cut corners all the time. And I think that kind of going back to the leadership aspect, when you do these esteemable actions, when you say, I'm going to the gym on Monday at 3, and then you go to the gym on Monday at 3, I'm gonna meal prep this week, and you meal prep, I'm not gonna drink soda, and you don't drink soda, you put those little tokens in your own self-esteem bank where you're like, I can lead myself, I make promises to myself, and I act on them. I'm good for it.
Yeah.
And when you do that often enough, you start to develop just a certain, you can call it a swagger, call it a mentality, but like the idea of like, I am in control of myself.
Yeah.
You have any other like practical tips on how we can develop that self-leadership and the confidence that comes along with holding the promises we make ourselves?
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting dance. And it's something I'm focused on this. I'm actually doing 75 hard.
Oh yeah.
And I
What day are
started
you
it
on?
and I was on day 9. And then, I woke up like super early one morning and I came downstairs and I was reading on the floor and I fell asleep and then my back seized up. And so I just I couldn't move. So I was like, damn it. So I'm on day 3 again anyway. But the reason I'm doing it is it's really an experiment, because I said, all right, for Q4, if I just double down on my self-care, my like personal foundations, my personal habits, what will happen in my business? Right. And it's not like I'm not just like, oh, I hope, the business grows. Like I'm showing up in my business and I'm marketing and I'm doing all the things that you do, but I'm not like, oh, I'm going to do this tactic and I'm going to do that to grow my business. I'm actually like, my number one focus is me and doubling down on those habits. Obviously like for me and my family and my well-being and all that. But I kind of want to see like, hey, what happens as a result of?
100%. And I think that's honestly what the concept of the $1 Million Body group is all about, right? Fitness and nutrition are force multipliers in our life. You double down on those sorts of things, suddenly your energy is better, your focus is better, you're spending less time getting more done at work. Like I said, it's not a tactic. It's not like a Facebook ad strategy. It's a start at home, and make your bed. And like, what happens to your business? What happens to your relationships? What happens to your finances after that? I think that's awesome. Yeah. So like, I don't know about the 75 hard challenge. I probably won't do it, but I think the idea of what's that?
Don't bother.
I mean, I haven't really missed a workout in like 5 years. So like,
yeah,
I don't know. I need the 2-a-days, but like, I love the idea of no compromise and what that does for you mentally to actually put the focus on those things. Cause yeah, like the fitness and nutrition are great. The mindset piece is like another level too, but I'm super curious to know what's going to happen with you in quarter 4. Are you keeping metrics and stuff, I assume?
So you mean like business wise?
I mean, yeah, like first and foremost business, because that's kind of the goal. But like, I also love to hear like body fat, like weight, that sort of thing too. Would be interesting to me.
Yeah. So I think I don't have like a way to measure body fat, but weight for
Taking
sure.
your progress pictures every day.
Yeah. That and the scale for sure. So yeah, I'm super curious. It's been like, I don't drink much usually, but I haven't had a drink in 2 weeks and no sugar and that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's like, we'll see, but yeah, I'm super curious to see how it plays out.
Awesome. Hey, so I know we're going to kind of wrap up here in just a second, but anything else you want to leave people with in terms of like practical strategies for developing leadership within ourselves and to like, as we all go out, because I know that like this is a community of leaders.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I read leadership books all the time. So I recommend that because I think it keeps it like fresh on your mind, and it actually raises the awareness around like, oh, wow, where can I apply that from that book that I was reading? So I think that's one thing. But, at the end of the day, I think if we all take a closer look at our self-leadership, and if we are looking at, hey, how can I improve by 1% in my self-leadership? How can I keep those promises of going to bed when I said I was going to go to bed, or doing the workout when I said I was going to do the workout, or, not eating the bread, or whatever it is, if we actually just focus on those things, can almost guarantee that your leadership of others is going to improve.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that once you are able to hone in on those things where you are leaving something on the table, leaving that last 1%, making compromises, cutting corners, then it becomes like not only easier to lead people, but like people will almost look to you for guidance because they see you taking care of your own business.
Yeah. Yep.
I also think it's really important to keep promises you make. Like that would be my number one tip is like, if you say something, make your word your bond. Don't need to like swear, don't need to sign a contract. If you say it's going to be done, like make it so. Because I think we live in a society where it's like, yeah, I'll be there at 3:00, and then you show up at 4:30 and stuff. And then over and over and over, as you do those things, you miss those workouts, you don't make your bed, you go to sleep a little later. You are reinforcing the fact that you're not honest. And who wants to be led by someone who's not honest, right? Ourselves included.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, Ben, thank you so much for your time today and dropping some wisdom. Where can people go to connect with you? I know you're a part of the $1 Million Body community now.
Yeah. So, I think the easiest way is, you can shoot me a friend request on Facebook. I'm, very active posting and, kind of sharing my either humor or, different insights and things like that. But, I've also got a free Facebook group. It's really focused on client fulfillment. So, I'm in the high ticket coaching space and helping business owners with their delivery basically of their programs, but also in that group where we're talking about leadership. So, it really is for high ticket coaches and consultants, but if if that's not you, you can connect with me personally on Facebook. I'm, happy to get a friend request and we can go from there.
And Ben's got some amazing posts. Your posts recently in the last couple of weeks have been on point. So
thanks, man.
Dude, so thanks a lot. We'll make sure to drop the link for your free Facebook group. And if you're a coach, a high ticket consultant, something along those lines, this is a group that you've got to be a part of. Check it out. So again, Ben, thank you so much. Just real quick, last thing, you have a hot take you want to leave us with? Ben's hot take.
Yeah. So, I would just say, back on that self-leadership journey, if there's someone in your life that you've been holding off on having a tough conversation or getting really honest with, there's no better time than right now to have the tough conversations, and I think we've seen more than ever, right? Like tomorrow's not promised. And so, it's like, stop waiting. It's an opportunity for you to, just step into that next level of self-leadership and perhaps resolve some things and just stop, ignoring what needs to be really dealt with.
That's good. Good. Not easy, but great advice.
Yep.
Awesome,
I'd love to with the challenge.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you again for your time. It's been great chatting.
Yeah. Thanks, man.